If you can learn how to correctly thread your sewing machine, you're already going to be a pro at sewing. Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel and welcome to another episode in the Classroom series, a series where I teach you everything you need to know about sewing. If you're new around here, hello, welcome. My name is Madison. I was a high school fashion design teacher for 4 years and have been sewing for over 20 years. My passion for this channel is to help encourage and inspire your creativity and help you to become a confident sewist, growing your sewing skills through every single project and every single video you watch here on my channel. In today's video, we are going to be talking about and tackling one of the most basic skills when it comes to sewing, but also one of the most important in my opinion, and that is how to correctly and properly thread your sewing machine. Now you might be wondering, isn't that just a really basic skill? And you're right, it is, but without the correct understanding of how to thread your sewing machine, you're probably going to come in contact with a lot of issues and troubles that pop up along the way. I like to say that a majority of the issues that come when you're sewing usually can be traced back to something going wrong in how your sewing machine was threaded. And so knowing how to fix those issues and just set your sewing machine up for success is going to set you up for success as a sewist. So let's talk about what you need to know when it comes to threading your sewing machine. Something that you should be familiar with are that there are actually two areas of your sewing machine that need to be properly threaded in order for your sewing machine to sew and run properly. There's the thread that we load into the top portion of our sewing machine called the top thread. And then there's also a bottom thread called the bobbin. Without both of those threads being properly installed in your sewing machine and threaded through the proper channels, your sewing machine is probably going to have issues when sewing. However, if you can learn how to properly and confidently thread your sewing machine before even starting a project, you're going to remove a lot of the issues that might pop up because your sewing machine isn't threaded properly. So let's head over to my sewing machine so that I can walk you through the correct threading process. So here we are at my sewing machine. While different sewing machines and different brands have different ways of being threaded, for the most part, they all follow a very similar path and step process. In threading my sewing machine today, I'm going to start with threading my top thread. This is my spool pin that I'm going to put my spool of thread on, like so. And we want the tail of my spool of thread to fall away into the back of the sewing machine. Then we're going to put this little button on to the end of our spool pin so that our spool of thread doesn't go rolling off. From here, we are going to take our thread and we are going to follow the numbers indicated on our sewing machine to correctly thread the top portion of our thread on our sewing machine. Taking our thread from our spool, we are going to hook it around this number 1. There's a metal piece right underneath this plastic part. You want to make sure that your thread gives a little click underneath there so that the tension is correct. Then we are going to let our thread fall into the crevice right next to number 2, going down to number 3. Now that we have our thread right here at our number 3, you notice a U-turn symbol. That means that we're going to take our thread and move it from the right side underneath this plastic hook and up towards this top crevice, going up to number 4. Now we are at number 4. And right now, there just seems to be a dark gap. That is because there is a portion of our sewing machine that actually needs to be present to continue threading our sewing machine. This is called the thread take-up lever, and it's a hook. If that take-up lever is ever out of view on your sewing machine, you simply need to turn the hand wheel that is located on the right side of your sewing machine towards you to raise your needle up, which raises your thread take-up lever. Now that that is in view, we're going to take our thread and wrap it around this take-up lever from right to left, hooking it around. We're going to loop it around from right to left. And as you can see, our thread is now hooked around our thread take-up lever. Now our thread is going to come back down that channel towards our needle. Now our thread is located at the number 5 on our sewing machine. From here, we are going to start threading it through our needle. Before we put the thread through our needle, we first want to hook it around and behind this metal portion right here. Our thread is going to hook behind that, which is going to allow it to kind of hang suspended above our needle. From there, we are then going to hook our thread behind this hook that's located right above our needle on our sewing machine. We're going to take our thread and we're going to hook it around that metal portion. This is now going to allow our thread to lay flush over the front face of our needle. From here, we simply need to get the thread through the eye of our needle, and there's two ways that you can do that. One, you can do it manually by taking the end of your thread and sticking it through the eye of your needle, pulling it out the back. And two, if your sewing machine has a self-threader, you can use the self-threader to thread your needle. To manually thread your thread through your needle, you need to have a sharp end of your thread. You want to snip it with your scissors so that it has a nice point. Then you can put your finger behind the eye of your needle so that you can locate where that opening is. And then you're going to line up the tail of your thread with the opening in your needle. You stick it through the eye of your needle and you pull the tail out the back. Your thread should now be straight across the front of your needle and through the eye of your needle. Then you're going to take your tail and you're going to stick it underneath your presser foot. And that is your needle threaded. However, if you want to use the self-threader, if your sewing machine has that, I will also show you that option. To use the self-threader on your sewing machine, if your sewing machine has one, you're going to pull the self-threader down and then you're going to follow the arrow directions. You're going to take your thread and you're going to hook it underneath that left hook and then bring it straight across the front of your needle. There should be a little metal hook that is sticking through the eye of your needle here. Your thread is going to go right underneath that hook so that when you let go of your self-threader, it's going to pull the thread through the eye of your needle so that you can pull it out. And now our needle is threaded. Now before we move on to threading our bobbin, I want to show you how to thread the top portion of your machine again, this time from a zoomed out angle so that you can see all of the steps in action. From our spool of thread, we take our thread, we hook it around our number 1 right here. We go down the channel for number 2. We hook it around this plastic piece at number 3. We come up and hook our thread from right to left around this metal hook that is called the take-up lever. We let it have a little click so that it is through the eye of that take-up lever. And then we bring our thread back down that same channel, coming down to our needle. Now that our thread is down at the number 5, we are going to hook it around this metal piece. And then we are going to hook it from left to right behind the metal piece that is right above our needle. So we have a hook right here and a hook right here. Now your thread is right above your needle. From there, all you have to do is thread the end and tail of your thread through the eye of your needle. Once it's through the eye of your needle, you pull it out the back and then you put it underneath your presser foot. Now that the top portion of our sewing machine is threaded, it's time to thread our bobbin. The bobbin of your sewing machine exists right underneath your presser foot. Now there's 2 different ways that your bobbin could appear on your sewing machine. For a sewing machine such as mine, my bobbin is a top threading bobbin, which means that my bobbin exists right underneath the needle plate and the presser foot on my sewing machine. For some sewing machines, your bobbin is going to be found and inserted right here underneath your needle plate and underneath your sewing machine. For a sewing machine with a bottom threading bobbin, this is where your bobbin is going to be inserted. Instead of underneath the needle plate, it's going to be underneath your presser foot and inside your sewing machine. And this bobbin is going to be threaded a little bit differently. Outside of correctly threading the top portion of your sewing machine, your bobbin is equally as important. If your bobbin is incorrectly threaded, your sewing machine is not going to sew properly, and chances are your sewing machine is going to have error messages or create knots in your thread. Now, while the bobbin might seem intimidating, it's actually very simple to thread, especially since most sewing machines give you a diagram for how your bobbin should be correctly threaded underneath your presser foot. As you can see, it shows our bobbin with thread. The thread is going to be wound counterclockwise so that when we put our bobbin into our bobbin casing, our thread is going to be going from right to left, and then it's going to hook through this first crevice around a metal piece right here, and then it's going to hook into this second crevice. Setting that aside, we then need our bobbin. You need to make sure that your bobbin is full of thread. I will show you how to wind a bobbin in a different video, but for now I'm going to use a bobbin that's already created. We're going to take this bobbin and with our tail falling to the left, meaning that our thread is going from right to left counterclockwise, we're going to drop it into our bobbin holder underneath our presser foot. From here, we're going to take our thread, we're going to drop it into this first crevice, and then follow the arrow, meaning that we are going to hold our bobbin down and pull our thread behind this metal piece. Then we are going to drop it to the back so that it goes through the second crevice. From there, we are going to go back to the thread that is in our needle right here, and we are going to hold the tail of our top thread with our left hand. Using the hand wheel on the right side of your sewing machine, you are going to lower your needle down into your bobbin and make a full rotation, bringing your needle down and back up. That is going to create a loop in your top thread that is going to hook your bobbin thread underneath. From there, you're going to take a pair of scissors and swipe them underneath your presser foot from right to left. This is going to pull your thread up to the top. And now both tails of thread are underneath our presser foot. And this is what our bobbin looks like threaded, and our needle with our thread. Let's thread our bobbin one more time, but this time from another angle. We are going to take our bobbin, making sure that our thread falls to the left, following the diagram on our bobbin cover. We're going to drop it into our bobbin compartment. Taking our tail, it's going to drop into that center front crevice. We're going to hold our bobbin down with our right finger, and we're going to pull our thread to the left, going the direction of this arrow. That is going to hook our thread behind this metal piece, keeping our bobbin tension secure. We're going to drop that tail of thread to the left, and now we're going to come and grab our top thread that is through our needle. From here, we're going to pinch that thread, and then we are going to take our needle, making a full rotation down and back up using our hand wheel on the right side of our sewing machine. Our needle goes down and comes back up. That creates a loop. Using a pair of scissors, we are going to swipe it underneath our presser foot, and that is going to pull our bobbin thread up to the top of our sewing machine. And now we have two tails. You're going to let those fall to the back of your sewing machine, and then you're going to take your bobbin cover and put it back over your bobbin. And now our sewing machine is correctly threaded and ready for your sewing project. And that is how you thread a sewing machine. I recommend that you go back to the beginning of this video, watch it again, sit down at your sewing machine, and thread your sewing machine a couple of times until you become confident and can do it on your own without watching the video. However, if you ever get confused, just come back to this video and it will all be refreshed for you. I hope this video takes away the confusion and complication of threading a sewing machine, and instead fills you with confidence knowing that you can indeed thread your sewing machine confidently. And just a reminder that when you're sewing, if something is going wrong and your machine is not sewing correct stitches, always go back to the threading of your sewing machine. I always recommended and told my students that if there were any issues with their stitches, that they just needed to rethread the top thread of their sewing machine and their bobbin. 90% of the time, that usually remedied the issue and they could continue their project. So I encourage you to keep that tip in mind for future projects.